What can a 19th century emperor teach a 21st century army? More than you might think. Ukraine's fight against Russian invasion is testing every aspect of modern warfare, from drone technology to trench logistics. But amid the satellite imagery and cyber warfare, some of the most vital lessons might still come from a man on horseback, Napoleon Bonaparte. Despite commanding forces over 200 years ago, Napoleon's battlefield philosophy, operational habits, and strategic mindset remain deeply relevant, especially for a country like Ukraine, facing a larger opponent with deep resources. Let's break down what Ukraine's military could learn from Napoleon, not to fight the last war, but to win the one they're in. Speed. Napoleon valued speed as a strategic weapon. His campaigns were known for rapid concentration of force, surprising enemies before they could react. He famously marched his army further and faster than others thought possible, often arriving days ahead of enemy expectations. Ukraine, in its early counteroffensives, used similar principles: fast-moving units, hit-and-run tactics, and striking weak points in overstretched Russian lines. But as the war has become more static, the temptation is to settle into positional warfare. Napoleon would have warned against that. He believed that momentum breaks armies, that you don't just attack positions, you disrupt the enemy's ability to think clearly, to move with confidence. In today's terms, this means continuing to exploit mobility, using drones, decentralized command, and special forces not to hold ground, but to unsettle the enemy's rhythm. Second, concentration of force. One of Napoleon's key tenets was central position. That is, inserting your army between two enemy forces and defeating each in turn before they can unite. In the modern theater, Ukraine isn't fighting two armies, but it is fighting across multiple fronts: Kharkiv, Donetsk, Kherson, and increasingly along the Black Sea. Napoleon's logic suggests that spreading too thin dilutes effectiveness. Ukraine's command must think like he did. Where can force be massed for decisive effect? Not everywhere, not all at once, but with intensity and timing. Create superiority in one place, even if you're outnumbered overall. Third, flexibility of command. Napoleon's corps system revolutionized warfare. Each corps could fight independently, had its own infantry, cavalry, artillery, but was designed to reunite quickly for larger battles. This gave him agility and initiative. In Ukraine's case, this speaks to the importance of empowered, mobile units that can operate with autonomy. Waiting for centralized orders is a mistake when battlefield conditions change hourly. Local commanders need the authority to act fast, improvise, and exploit. Napoleon's genius wasn't just about giving orders, it was about building a system that could adapt without them. Fourth, deception and feints. Napoleon loved deception, and not in a subtle way. He used fake retreats, night marches, feints at river crossings, even false intelligence leaks, all to create uncertainty in the enemy mind. He understood war as theater. The performance mattered. Ukraine has shown glimmers of this. The Kherson offensive that drew Russian troops south before Ukraine struck around Kharkiv was textbook Napoleonic misdirection. But there's room to expand it. Make Russia defend everywhere, stretch its reserves, fall for phantom offensives, keep them chasing shadows. Fifth, morale as a force multiplier. Napoleon once said, "In war the moral is to the physical as 3 is to 1. He believed belief itself, in leadership, in the cause, in likely victory, could outweigh numbers. Ukraine's advantage in morale has been clear, but morale is not static. It must be nurtured through narrative, symbols, rest, victories, and yes, even music and rituals. Napoleon awarded medals liberally, made speeches constantly, understood the power of theater to motivate troops. In modern terms, this means investing in communication, not just to the public but within the ranks. Soldiers who know why they fight and believe they are winning, fight harder. Finally, decisive battle versus attrition. Napoleon aimed to win through decisive engagements, not endless grinding battles. His goal was to shatter the enemy's will and capability in a single blow, not wear them down over years. That's difficult in modern warfare, but the principle remains. Seek moments where a bold strike can change the balance. That could be a strategic breakthrough. It could be the capture of a key logistical hub. It could even be an audacious psychological blow. The sinking of the Moskva is a good example. The point is to constantly search for ways to break the enemy's sense of control. Because in the end, Napoleon didn't just win with men and muskets. He won by creating confusion, seizing initiative, and making his enemies react to him. Ukraine can do the same, not by copying Napoleon's methods, but by applying his mindset. Move faster than expected, concentrate where least convenient for the enemy, empower commanders, use deception, protect morale, and always search for the moment of decision. That's what Ukraine's military can learn from Napoleon. Not how to fight old wars, but how to win new ones. Napoleon Bonaparte wasn't just a general, he was a strategist, a systems thinker, and a battlefield philosopher. He transformed warfare by rejecting the slow, rigid traditions of aristocratic command and replacing them with something faster, more aggressive, and more psychological. At the core of Napoleon's approach was the idea of decisive movement. He didn't believe in waiting. He marched his armies rapidly, often covering twice the daily ground of his opponents, and struck before the enemy could fully prepare. Surprise was not just a tactic for him, it was a doctrine. He forced battles on his terms, in places he chose, at times that suited him, often catching larger forces off guard and defeating them piecemeal. He also pioneered the corps system, where semi-independent units could march separately and fight alone if needed, but come together swiftly for major engagements. This gave his armies unmatched flexibility. Rather than rely on one big, slow-moving column, he created a swarm of adaptable forces, each with its own infantry, cavalry, artillery, and command. But perhaps his greatest insight was psychological. Napoleon understood that perception could be more powerful than numbers. He used bold maneuvers to unsettle opponents, speeches to rally his men, and symbolic acts like marching through enemy capitals to create a sense of inevitability. He said, "The moral is to the physical as 3 is to 1." To him, belief in leadership, in mission, in likely victory could overwhelm material disadvantage. In Napoleon's view, the best war wasn't just fought with guns and men. It was won by shaping tempo, controlling the narrative, and destroying the enemy's will to resist before the real fighting even began. Napoleon's 1812 invasion of Russia, once a bold attempt to force a swift victory, ended in disaster as his army was drawn deep into hostile territory, overextended, and decimated by scorched earth tactics and the brutal Russian winter.